time to start Dark Souls 3, the last of the trilogy and the first one of them to be made on PlayStation 4 at first, or on that generations of console, and also the one to which Hidetaka Miyazaki came back to be the big boss of the game, while he wasn't the boss of the Dark Souls 2 while he was doing Bloodborne, which can be said it's Dark Souls but in Victorian London style gothic horror. So time to go and start the final episode of Dark Souls.
Yes, indeed.
Oh yep.
It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge.
Although the world is about to end again. Or is ending again.
North, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words.
Well, this is still dark fantasy in Western style, even though it's made in Japan. Weird. Just like in Dark Souls 1, the fire is fading and bell is tolling, but in Dark Souls 1, you tolled the bell.
Lords of Cinder from their graves.
But now it has rang again. And those who are meant to be open, ring the bell, show up. Aldrich, big goopy mess.
Undead Legion, the Abyss Watchers.
Those who followed Artorias. Although there's a bit of irony in them.
And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital. Yon the Giant.
And he is a giant. A king giant. A big thing. But they are all fiery. But you are not one of them.
The lords will abandon their thrones.
Well, being made into a kindling is a shit job.
And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder.
So the worst of the worst are also dug up, or
That ash seeketh embers.
so the worst bunch of possible undead are dug up while they're at it. There's no more. As the world is ending, even the dying ones, undead ones are failing. So it's time to start, however, do the character. And here he is. A weird undead from somewhere. Thrown to grave with all his possessions. I guess that's the way how they bury people. And now he's just... bell rang at the end of the world. And like any other, like everybody else, he's waking up. In a desert, in a graveyard, of course. That's where the undead always show up. When dead rise from their graves, it is where graves are, and that is the graveyard. And he is very tired. And his name is Kali. But yeah, time to start. He doesn't look too healthy, but then again he's just risen from the grave, so it can be expected. And being a herald, he's armed with a spear, shield, spear, and as a quite dramatic difference to previous Dark Souls games, this one does not have a spell charge system. It has more like a magic point system, which you can, or better say, which works on basis of your weapon and arts and your also of your magics, meaning emphasis is very much on your basic fighting. And of course there are some rope-wearing monstrosities, and there's much more flowing ropes and all that kind of things, just because to show that in Dark Souls 1 there wasn't practically any of that kind of equipment. Dark Souls 2 had some of them, and this one has lots of them, and the animation is quite good, although it still makes quite weird with this kind of as the spear's shaft clips through the cape. And of course they also made large impressive architecture to this place. And there are lots of gravestones and all that kind of nonsense in here. Time to rest. And that's all that can be done in gravestone right now. You can rest at them. And the general pace of gameplay is quite fast. It's fastest than any other Souls game, except Bloodborne being something like you could call it Dark Souls 2.5 or something in different landscapes. Has even faster gameplay, as it also does not have shields or any kind, or actually it does have shield, which is completely useless even in that game. Having very big emphasis on parrying mechanics, although it is not much. It's wrong for me to keep speaking about a different game, even though it's from same makers and having the same big boss to make it. So yeah, Miyazaki he certainly isn't any fool about making games. He might not be some kind of real innovator, as in, for example, his countryman Hideo Kojima, who could be called to be one of the true masters of that craft, as in always pushing the medium to go further. These ones are just in a sense, much simpler game of dark, grim fantasy. Of European style, and of course, unlike in Dark Souls 1 where the bodies could just be kicked around, in here, and unlike in Dark Souls 2 where once they killed over, those which stayed just remained there. In this one they are they don't fly around as much as in Dark Souls 1, but they don't just slap around pointlessly. So you can sate your sadistic urges by kicking off dead bodies. And unlike as a throwback to Dark Souls 1, there's a boss right at the start. Gundur. And the unkindled one is, well, is very weak form of undead, as in that not practically, you couldn't actually even say being cursed, but what he lacks in power, he more than makes up in being speedy. And he also can't take a hit like anything. It's more... Whoop. Meaning the fighting in Dark Souls 3 has become very fast and brutal. And bosses tend to be quite much of battles of dodging, speed and trickiness. You are to do as much as dodging and be as careful as you possibly can. And Gundur himself is no exception to that. But unlike bearer of the curse of Dark Souls 2, undead of the Dark Souls 3 recovers from his stamina loss really fast, meaning you can start attacking very fast indeed. And you really need to, mostly because enemies tend to be Lyrics couldn't do it. And there are also these bosses tend to do these dramatic leap attacks, which are very telegraphed, but they are just as painful as they look. And I look at that, I died. Shit. Yeah. Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3 gives no mercy. It throws you right at the fray. But, as you might notice, there is no hollowing, meaning you can die 750,000 times and there is no, you don't lose any hit points while you're at it. And of course there's chance to equip rings, equipment and all that. And of course one of the best things about Herald as a starting class is the fact that he's got a quite potent shield to use. Oh damn. But you might also be quite easy to notice that the armor in Dark Souls 3 is, it's not an armor which is meant to protect you from hazards. It's more like a cosmetic thing you wear because you might like certain kinds of looks to your warrior or undead avatar to have. Having an impressive thick Havel's plate mail made of rock is quite much the same as having few rags on you, except well those few rags are lighter, which I find really annoying choice of design, although of course boss monsters should be strong and scary and ill-tempered. But armor should have value. If you have put armor to game, it should have some sort of functional purpose in the game. Hello, Iudex. You might not be aware of it, but I cannot die for good. You can kill me 1,000 times and I'll come back right after to fuck you over again. Take the strong attack. And yes, you can whoop, parry and give a good stat. Parrying is also quite very important skill for you to master. And right at the start of the game, it might not be so necessary, but it will become very necessary. And if you are a true master of it, you are practically invincible in this game. But yeah, first boss, gigantic humanoid. If you would assume it to be about 6 feet tall, wearing that armor, Iudex gonna do something about 8 or more, maybe even more. And damn. So you are bringing out the ugly things. Missed. So thank God I had a block on. And once he gets that move, he gets a huge boost in reach, which isn't so pleasant. Take some fire at you, boy. And as this was made to PlayStation, this generation of consoles, the AI is a bit of a smarter than you might hope. Meaning, it knows when to turn to aggression. No, it doesn't. And of course this goopiness. Oops. And of course the bigger, it's really annoying about Dark Souls is that hitboxes are can be quite wonky. Come on. And stab! Iudex Gundu goes down right at the second attempt. Hair of Fire destroyed. Oh yeah, that is what the bosses are called. Heirs of Fire, and destroying the boss I have embered. Being embered means the undead crackles, pops, burns, and is generally considered quite hot looking dude, and that also makes it so that he can summon aid, and of course he can also get attacked by invaders, which is a give or take, but which is something like a double-edged sword. Well, of course, knowing if you want to get help, prepare to be invaded, and if you just want to help other players by just leaving your own summon sign once you get the object to do it, you can do it, and if you successfully aid, you become you become embered. So yeah, and being embered has that kind of benefit that it boosts your health quite noticeably in statistics, but in practice, well, it gives you a health boost, yes. And of course, and one interesting detail about this is also the fact that bosses, when they die, they also leave Bosses in death live behind bonfires. Well, I'm not gonna start to scuffle with them. Or actually I do, I forgot I had a slightly healing miracle. As being a herald, I don't know why heralds would have healing magics, but he does. And they are at the beginning of the game where you don't have so much equipment. They are very useful. They can be quite useful. And camera also moves quite swiftly in the basic settings of Dark Souls 3. And giving a bit more display about how much speed and quickness is emphasized in this game of being fast and able. And Firelink Shrine. It has appeared, it was, well, not in Dark Souls 2, but here it is. And it looks bleak.
Welcome to the bonfire, unkindled one.
Yeah.
I am a firekeeper.
Indeed.
I tend
and
to
now
the
you
flame
speak.
And tend to thee. The lords have left their thrones and must be delivered to them.
Oh, so there are a bunch of... So I just want to talk to them.
I am at thy side.
Well, nice to know I have an ally. Let's have a chat more.
Ashen One, to be unkindled is to be a vessel for souls. Sovereignless souls will become thy strength. I will show thee how.
So...
Ashen One, bring me souls plucked from their vessels.
So, you level me up.
Ashen One, to sovereign.
Alright.
Ashen One. Farewell, may the flame.
Oh yeah, so you are the level up lady. Like the Emerald Herald of Dark Souls 2. Time to place the sword. To this bonfire, the master bonfire, or however you wanna call it. Now, who is this grim looking fellow here?
Ah, another one roused from the sleep of death.
Yep.
Well, you're not alone. We unkindled are worthless. Can't even die right.
Oh yep. That might be.
Gives me conniptions.
What is
Have
conniption?
us seek the lords of Cinder and return them to their moulding thrones.
Oh, I guess they don't want to go there.
We're talking true legends with the metal to limp the fire.
So, those guys are really scary and strong and dangerous. Well, if one of them is called Giant.
Don't you think?
Well, yeah. That's bleak. And there's a merchant, and there's also a looks like to be some sort of blacksmith. And there's quite grim looking dude, so let's just have a bit more chat.
Ashen produced the coiled
I did.
sword at the mark of ash to Lothric.
So this place is not in actual place where the game is meant to be. This is in this is Firelink Shrine, and the actual game happens in Lothric. So time to travel. High Wall of Lothric. So I guess I had to go there. Indeed. Well, and of course they still show it, and this far I could say that the Dark Souls 3, I'd say, is the most technical of all Dark Souls 3, meaning that if you are really good, you can do really impressive feats of acrobatics, blocking actions and destruction, but most likely you're not, and which means you get yourself ripped apart, killed, eaten, and all kinds of ugly, really unpleasant way of destroyed, like you really fast and brutally, unlike in Dark Souls 2 and 1, where you might have a bit of leeway, but in this one there's no, if you make a mistake you die, period, fuck you, end of report, next case. And Lothric is not particularly friendly place to go. And of course, but this also follows quite many of the innovations of Dark Souls 2, which is to say fast travel right away and many other good traits of available. But it is time to end this first introductory episode of Dark Souls 3 to here. And I'll see you later.